very important. It's 99 to 1. So the 1 is written as a word. And not as a number. Many people do that wrong. They write 99 to 1, and you get very angry.
Will they learn?
Please don't do that. Yes.
What is, you guys, it's interesting that you bring this up, and we're leading off with this question, but one of the questions I want to ask you is that how popular is left political discourse and thought in Germany today with such a kind of, the supposition that the liberal, technocratic, democratic, or the liberal elites have been successful, which I think is questionable. How popular? What is the appetite for left politics in Germany?
You want to go? Or should I? Yeah, as you wish.
Okay. This is actually a very, very good question. It's also a little bit nuanced to answer that properly, because on the one hand, on the positive side, I do see an uprising in actual left in the public, like mainly in the internet, like social media. There are some social revolutionary radicals going about, but this is like not representative of society as a whole. Actually, on the other hand, and this is very dismal, I would say that the reaction to the war in the Ukraine has shown us time and time again that in Germany we have the problem that a lot of people are calling themselves left-wing when they are liberals at best and are in a very, very strong state idealistic, system idealistic set of a frame of mind, to the point where they would rather defend the system from criticism from the actual left than be open to debate. There's a lot of stuff going on. Like, for example, in Germany, I would say people call themselves left. When you ask a German person, why do they consider themselves left-leaning, they would probably say something liberal, anti-racist. So that's the narratives that you get. So I'm against Nazis. And I'm like, yeah, great. So was my grandma. Well, one of them, the other not. But she was definitely not left-leaning. So not everybody who hates Nazis is a lefty. So but still, that's a little bit the narrative. That this is a little bit simplistic, but I think as a short answer, I would say we have a lot of people who misinterpret like a liberal bourgeois anti-fascism with actual left-leaning politics, and they are currently very, very bitter and toxic.
Daniel, I have to say it again for the people in the back. There are a lot of people who are confusing liberal bourgeois anti-fascist politics for a left project.
Yes. Without ever striving for an actual system change, and without the realization that fascism is a bourgeois way of governing people. So they still think that fascism would be like a rupture in the power dynamic, which it's not. But that epiphany,
it's just
rarely seen with people.
It's a consequence of the bourgeois national thought in bad times. That's what fascism is.
Listen, you guys. I'm glad you guys are going right along. I'd like M2 Start and Stefan to jump in, because we've had a debate in a couple of our chats lately with Gene Bajlan about, is it appropriate to use the term fascism in terms of the current political context in the United States with the reactionary right? I'd like to hear people's opinions. M2 Start, what are your thoughts? Do you think fascism is overused in the American context? And Stefan, what do you think? Do you think it's a weak political framing?
Go ahead, Stefan. Okay, I'll go.
Definitely. Talking about
that again
is obviously like useless politics, right? Like, the guy is a figure of kind of, he's meant to be kind of, he's structurally not leading a political movement and has no interest in leading a political movement, right? His politics is used as kind of like an avenue for himself to do kind of almost random kind of political acts, so most of which are right-wing, but without any particular allegiance to any kind of systemic ideology. And so, I think kind of US, like, to discuss fascism in the United States and the liberal media in the US means to discuss Trump. And because it revolves around Trump, the fascist discourse then is kind of inherently useless because it uses this person who's clearly not a fascist to orientate the whole thing around it.
Daniel, Nadim, I'd like to hear your thoughts.
May I just say something that, I mean, is painfully obvious, but ask someone who claims that Trump or, the far-right militias in the US are fascist. Ask them, what is fascism? And you will not get an answer that makes any sense.
Something racist.
You will not. I mean, it's also. I mean, to be fair, it's not something that is very simple to just explain, especially because of all these kind of propaganda campaigns that have been going on around this, and also let's say the implicit and explicit campaign to divorce fascism from bourgeois democracy, to put it as something different, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is the antidote to bourgeois democracy. That's why we as Democrats, we have to fight it. And that's simply put, if you look at the history, it's not the case. I mean, even if you look at the intellectual basis for that, I mean, go to our channel, watch the interview with Ishai Landa on the liberal foundations of fascist thoughts. It's all in there. It's connected to this. And I mean, they're all the more important to disconnect yourself from it in times where you can afford to. But yeah, and that can always come back. I do think that some people might, have tendencies in this direction. Is there a movement that we can call like a fascist danger in the US? I don't think so. In Germany, I would say no. I don't see that.
Let me ask you a question.
Can I add something to it?
Please, go ahead.
There's also, to me, it's like the huge question: why are you using the term fascism? Like, why? Why is that term even necessary? It's because it is immediately a moral outrage. If you declare something fascist, everybody wants to be like on the good side. It's like, oh no, I don't want to be that. So it's a war cry, nothing but. And to me, it also has like the side effect that it underplays the lethality of the neoliberal program. So we don't need the term fascism to talk about how deadly neoliberal capitalism is. And for example, people like in Europe, like Macron or that fucker in Greece, Mitsotakis, they're starting to like really beat people to a pulp in the street for simply demanding like living wages and stuff like that. You don't need to call them fascists. They're deadly bastards in any which way. People are starting to are going to start freezing in the streets in this winter if things go ahead as they are now. It still does not make it necessary to call it fascism. Capitalism is just as deadly.
Well, let me ask a question.
Go ahead. I'm Toussaint, please.
Thanks. So there's always this idea that Trump is not a fascist. He's not this. He's not even a Republican. He's an opportunist. And there's always this idea that we have to wait until the next Trump comes, the smarter Trump, the one that knows what they're doing, the one that has an ideology. Do you think that would be when fascism comes to I don't know how you can know.
I would say, first, Trump is not that stupid, actually. If you look at what he's doing, how he's communicating, and I mean, he is still quite relevant, and you guys are probably seeing him facing off with the other gerontocrat in the White House in the next 1 or 2 years. He's not that stupid. All right, he's very vulgar. This is part of it's part of his game. He's extremely funny, objectively, I would say. He makes good jokes. I would say, as soon as you try to attach a label like fascism to Trump, or may it be the next Trump that is much more, I don't know, much more gentleman-like, let's say. Ultimately, what the discourse is trying to do is force a moral condemnation, right? And we as Marxists, we as materialists on the left, we should try to, when analyzing situations at least, try to refrain from these kind of moral condemnations. The morals don't get us anywhere because everybody has his morals. Probably Stefan has different ones than I do, than Daniel does, than Pascal does, than Toussaint does, right? So we should analyze the situation as it is. Was the stuff that Trump did in his 4 years in any way fascist? I'm sorry, but I would say totally not. There were presidents before, even the president right before him, that did much worse stuff, both to their population as well as to the population outside of the country. So, if you try to look at this with a cooler mindset, I say, then you don't need these terms unless it really becomes fascism, unless it really becomes a movement to restore the power of the state in the face of a waning democracy, of a waning cohesion inside of the society, where you need this powerful state, the strong man, and the strong police on the streets to keep everything in check. That is not. I don't think that's out of the question. It can still happen, but I don't think that's what we're seeing yet.
There's lots of American politicians who are trying to be Trump right now, up into including like taking up his cadence in how he speaks and so on. But I don't think you should really be worried about kind of the next Trump that comes wrong with a coherent project and a coherent ideology and so on, who then will be so much better than Trump. Because all these guys, people aren't interested in these second-rate Trumps who are less charismatic, who are less funny and so on. And instead they have like solid politics. Because that's not what voters want, Like that's like a kind of coherent ideological project is not what attracts people to vote for a presidential candidate in the United States. And so, yeah, I don't think it's we should be worrying about kind of a guy coming along with this thing who's then going to do like what Trump did. I think the only one person who can do Trump is Trump.
Also, I mean, you should, when talking about fascism, again, what that is, you have to realize this is not just some guy with an idea coming into a parliament and changing everything around, right? Fascism, there is a time where fascism is in the interest of the nation and of the national capitals, and we are not there yet. This is not in their interest. And even in that time, even in the Second World War, there were hell of a lot of capitalists and powerful people who were against that takeover, right? But okay, they had enough power and enough deprivation also in the streets. They just came out of a crisis. They had a world war that they just lost, and the whole feeling of being subjugated by the rest of the world, with a kind of also bad treaties for them in their eyes at least, and then the national defense mode in their head just kept spinning. It was not Hitler that just convinced them to be Nazis, right? Keep that in mind.
Right.
He maybe geared some of that energy in some direction, for sure, and I think he had a pivotal moment. But this idea of the nation that we have to defend, this idea of the strong state that we need in order to defend this nation, that was there before, and that's part again of bourgeois democracy. That's inside there.
Do you think that a fascist movement? Stefan, do you want to go ahead?
In just to say briefly, in January 2021, like there was, when Trump was trying to like hold on to his position despite losing the presidency, American capital basically threatened a capital strike, like a full-blown total capital strike, where basically Trump was informed by US capital that we're not going to support this. And this was one of the key factors in stopping it. So yeah, I think that indicates how kind of far we're away from fascism in terms of just that the capital class doesn't have any interest in it at the moment.
The question I want to ask you is that, and we're going to move on from it. A lot of people say whether it's fascism or not doesn't matter because it's still bad. And the question I was going to ask you is that is fascism innately culturalist and masculinist?
I think I wouldn't. I mean, in the past, maybe yes, they have been. If you look at it empirically, I think you can say yes. And I don't know. Look at Italy, look at Germany, look at other fascist movements in Britain. This Mosley guy and people like that, right? It was like that. I'm not so sure. It would be an interesting question whether it has to be like that. It is more about reestablishing an order that has been lost. And if you are in a society in which, like a society that we are nearing today, to be honest, in which, for example, the gender disparity closes more and more, not completely, but it closes compared to, 100 years ago. It might very well be that the female, the women, or even queer, trans people, etc., will be integrated into this fascist project. I don't think this is completely out of the question. I don't have any theoretical argument why it would be.
But so we do agree though that it's always a kind of reactionary project. In other words,
Yes.
by definition, fascism is a project of reaction, of an attempt to take society back to what is perceived as the glory days, or what is believed to be the national lore.
Thank you for watching. Please don't forget to hit like and subscribe on your way out. You can catch the live stream of This Is Revolution every Tuesday through Thursday at 6 p.m. Pacific Time and Saturday, 9 a.m. Pacific Time. This is Revolution.